The reaction between acids and bases is called neutralization. When you react an acid with a base, it turns into a salt and water. Salt is just the more colloquial name or the more common name for an ionic compound. So a salt is an ionic compound. If you react an acid plus a carbonate, what was the formula for a carbonate ion again? CO3 2-. So this is the ion, but when we talk about carbonate, we talk about what it's bonded to with something else. So you might see like sodium carbonate. So when we talk about acid plus carbonate reactions and identifying it, you're not going to see the 2- on the top right. So the carbonate ion itself is CO3 2-, but when you're looking for the ionic compound, when carbonate is bonded to something else, you'll only see the CO3, and then the 2 will be crisscrossed, like when you apply the crisscross method in year 11. So the ion itself is CO3 2-, but when you're looking for the formula, when it's bonded to something else, you'll just see the CO3. So if it's an acid plus a CO3, it also forms salt, it also forms water, but it also forms carbon dioxide gas as well. Lastly, if it's an acid with a metal, a pure metal, it's going to be acid plus metal also turns into a salt, once again, which is an ionic compound, and then it forms hydrogen gas. Please put your states in your equations. Acid and your base are always aqueous. So is your salt. Your salt is always aqueous. Your water is liquid. Your carbonate is aqueous. Your carbon dioxide is a gas. Your hydrogen gas is a gas. And your metal, your solid metal that you're reacting, is going to be a solid. So this isn't like metal combined with something else. This is just the pure metal on its own. So it's just a single atom. So everything is aqueous. The acid and the base and the carbonate react and or dissolve in water. So those are aqueous. Your salt is dissolved in water. So that's aqueous. And then everything else is a simple gas, liquid, solid. Write the equation for hydrochloric acid plus sodium hydroxide. What's the formula for hydrochloric acid? HCl. What's the state of hydrochloric acid? Aqueous. What's sodium hydroxide? NaOH. And what's the state? The state is aqueous. When you are writing these equations, the water is not hard to write, the carbon dioxide is not hard to write, because those formulas are set in place. Regardless of what acid or what base you're reacting, it's always going to be a salt plus a H2O, a salt plus a CO2 plus a H2O. So the only formula that you don't actually know is the salt. So if you're ever stuck in the exam, the technique for writing these equations is this. You write out anything that you know first, cancel it out from your left-hand side. Whatever you get left with will form your salt. In this particular example, you've identified that it's an acid plus base reaction. It's not a carbonate because it doesn't have CO3. And it's not a metal because sodium is bonded with something else. It's not pure sodium. We realize, oh, this is an acid plus base reaction. I know it forms a salt plus water. Have got no clue what the salt is. So I'm going to write out the water first. So I'll go over here and I'll say H2O, and then I will cancel out anything on the left-hand side that gets used to make my water. The H2O comes from my OH and my H, because the H plus the OH will that's the thing that reacts together to form the water. So I cross those two things out. So then anything that's left over that I haven't represented on the right-hand side of my equation yet, NaCl, that will form my salt. So this is sodium and this is chlorine, which means the salt that I form has to be sodium chloride. And the formula for sodium chloride is NaCl, and the state, because it's a salt, it's going to be aqueous. Let's say we do nitric acid. What's the formula for nitric acid? HNO3. Let's do copper 2 carbonate. What's the formula for copper 2 carbonate?
CuCO3.
This is an acid plus carbonate reaction. What are my general products that get formed on the right-hand side? Carbon dioxide and salt and water. Don't really know what the salt is yet. We're going to apply the technique. CO2 plus H2O plus whatever my salt is. Now, my CO2, I'm going to cross out my carbonate. So the CO3 part, I'm going to cross out. And then for my water, some of the oxygen for the water comes from the carbonate as well, the CO3. So I'll cross that out again. And then I'll also take the hydrogen from the acid. What I have left with is copper and NO3. So this is copper and this is nitrate. So nitric acid is HNO3, but the nitrate ion is NO3-. When students learn this for the first time and they're like, oh, I crossed out the OH and I crossed out the hydrogen and I combine what's left over, it's not as simple as combining the formula that you actually see. So for like this one, it was only by chance and also because of the way the charge is balanced out that I crossed out the OH and I crossed out the hydrogen and I get left with Na and Cl. And on the right-hand side, it literally is just Na and Cl. That was coincidental though. When we talk about crossing the stuff on the left-hand side out and combining what's left over, I'm saying think about the ions that you have left and what ionic compound forms. Because even though you have Cu and NO3, it's not CuNO3 on the right-hand side. You need to think about what ions are left, which is why I was really careful about asking you what's the charge of nitrate. Nitrate is NO3 minus. This is Cu2 plus. So it's copper and nitrate, which means the salt that you form is copper nitrate.
Cu brackets NO3 brackets 2.
Is this equation done though? How do I balance it? 2 in front of the HNO3. Let's do one more then. Phosphoric acid, H3PO4 aqueous lead. What's the formula of lead? Pb solid. Acid plus base is salt plus water. Acid plus carbonate is salt plus water plus CO2. Acid plus metal was salt plus hydrogen gas. So that's going to be H2G. And then I cross out my H2 from my hydrogen on my acid. And then whatever's left over forms my salt. So if it's phosphoric acid, PO4, whatever that ion is your phosphate ion. What's the phosphate ion? PO4 3 minus. PB is PB2 plus. What's the salt that gets made? What's the formula?
PP3 PO4O2.
So you think about what ions get left over, and then you crisscross the charges like you do from year 11. So the 2 goes over here on the 3. On the whole PO4, which is why you see a 2 here, and the 3 goes over to the PB. 5 examples, 5 minutes. Hydrochloric acid plus potassium hydroxide.
HCl, aqueous, plus KOH, aqueous, gives you H2O, liquid, and KCl.
Nitric acid and magnesium hydroxide.
2HNO3 aqueous plus MgOH2 aqueous equals to water, liquid, and MgNO3 to aqueous.
Sulfuric acid and calcium carbonate.
H2SO4 aqueous plus CaCO3 aqueous. That turns into CO2 gas plus H2O liquid plus CaSO4.
Acetic acid and sodium carbonate.
2CH3 COOH aqueous plus Na2CO3 aqueous makes CO2 gas plus H2O liquid plus 2CH3 COONA aqueous.
Hydrochloric acid and aluminium.
HCl aqueous plus Al solid produce AlCl3 aqueous plus hydrogen gas.